Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down big topics using the source material. Today, we are diving into a force that, for better or worse, literally built the world we live in: industrialization.
Okay, just think about it for a second. Pretty much everything you can see around you is a product of this massive shift. It's the engine that built our cities and filled our homes. But it's also a story packed with conflict, challenges, and some seriously unintended consequences. So, let's get into it.
To really get a grip on what industrialization is, we have to rewind the clock a bit and look at the world before all the smokestacks and production lines. For most of human history, things were just different.
And this slide, right here, shows the massive mental shift that had to happen. Before all this, most societies were all about production for use. You grew food for your family, you made clothes for your family to wear. It was about survival. But industrialization flipped the script to production for exchange. Suddenly, the whole point was to make stuff to sell to someone else, for profit. That was a total game changer.
So the textbook definition is pretty straightforward. It's the big move from a farming economy to a factory-based one. But, and this is the key part, it wasn't just about swapping a plow for a machine. This was a complete rewiring of society itself. It changed how we work, where we live, and even how we think.
For a really long time, the story went something like this. Industrialization was the one and only path to becoming a wealthy, modern nation. The logic felt almost foolproof. Just make more stuff and your country gets richer. Simple, right? Well, economists like Gavin Kitching laid out a really strong case for it. They argued that, look, you can only grow so many crops on a piece of land, but in a factory, the sky's the limit. When you mass produce something, each individual item gets way cheaper to make. That's what we call economies of scale. And when all the different factories for, say, car making cluster in one city, they all benefit from the same roads and workforce. That creates what are called external economies, making everybody even more productive.
And this idea led to some pretty influential roadmaps. A famous one was Walt Rostow's Stages of Growth. It basically said there's a clear step-by-step path. You start as a traditional society, get your government and finances in order, and then you take off into this explosive period of industrial growth. Before you know it, you're a mature global economic player. For decades, this was seen as the way to do it, the one-size-fits-all plan. But, stories that simple are rarely the whole truth. And pretty soon the cracks in this shiny narrative of pure progress started to show. The relentless drive for industrial growth had a dark side. People like Susan George started asking some really tough questions. They argued that this Western model of development wasn't always a magic bullet. In some cases, it was just a new way for wealth to get funneled from poor countries to already rich ones, making a few people incredibly wealthy while leaving a lot of others behind. And honestly, the downsides became impossible to ignore. We're talking about pollution that fueled climate change, a massive gap between the fortunes of factory owners and the wages of their workers, and all the new social problems that came with people crowding into industrial cities, often leaving behind traditions and communities that had existed for centuries. All of this led people to stop and ask a really fundamental question, a question that totally changed the conversation. Are we even measuring development the right way? Does just having a bigger economy, a bigger GNP, actually mean people are living better lives? And that's the crucial point. A whole new way of thinking about development started to take shape. It's said that true development has to be about improving the lives of all people. It's not just about money, it's about human well-being. Are people healthier? Are they getting a good education? Is society fair? Because growth without that, well, that isn't really development at all. Okay, so that's the big dilemma, right? Can you get the incredible economic growth of industrialization without all the catastrophic downsides? Well, a fascinating case study gives us some clues: the Asian tigers. You have to picture this. Back in the 1960s, these four places, Hong Kong, Singapore, South Korea, and Taiwan, were not the economic powerhouses they are today. Not by a long shot. They had very few natural resources and were facing huge, huge challenges. And then this happened. Just look at that number. An average growth rate of 6% a year, every single year, for over 30 years. I mean, that's just mind-blowing. People called it the Asian miracle. So the question is, how on earth did they pull it off? Well, their secret wasn't just building factories randomly. It was a laser-focused strategy called export-oriented industrialization, or EOI.
The idea was simple but powerful. Instead of just making stuff for their own people, they engineered their entire economies to make things to sell to the rest of the world. So let's break down their playbook, because it's pretty brilliant. First, they had what's called a capitalist developmental state. The government wasn't just a referee, it was an active coach, directing money and support to key industries. Second, it was all about exports. Everything was geared towards selling abroad. Third, they cleverly protected their brand new industries from foreign competition at first, giving them a chance to grow. And finally, and this is so important, they invested massively in their people, with huge commitments to education and training.
What the Asian tigers proved was absolutely revolutionary. They showed the world that how a country industrializes is just as important, maybe even more important than if it industrializes. Their playbook changed the game. But here's the catch. The world today is a completely different place than it was in the 1960s. The playbook that worked so well for the tigers might not be something you can just copy and paste in the 21st century. And for countries looking to grow today, take a nation like Nigeria, for example. These new rules change everything. You can't just follow the old playbook. Any industrial plan now has to be environmentally sustainable from the get-go. You have to compete in a global economy that runs on data and knowledge, not just manufacturing. And you have to figure out what to do about AI and automation, transforming the very nature of work. This might mean new strategies are needed, like using things like the African Continental Free Trade Area to build powerful regional markets. So this leaves us with a final, massive question. The first industrial revolution gave us one playbook. The Asian tigers wrote another, brilliant one. But now, as we face the totally unique challenges of our time, from climate change to artificial intelligence, the biggest question in global development is, what does the next playbook look like?